edit out this part. Here we are. I am Joe Novick, the publisher of Tap Into Flemington Raritan. This is our feature called Take Me to Your Leader, in which we are interviewing elected officials around the county and also people who are in the non profit world who are involved in making some very important decisions that impact Hunterdon County residents every day. This morning, I am here with my very good friend, Chris Phelan, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Joey. Pleasure to be here. Always enjoy my conversations with you. So I'm looking forward to our interview this morning.
Well, thank you very much for being with us this morning. So let me start out with a question that we've been asking, each person to give a little bit of background. What is your background? What drew you to the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, I've had the pleasure of serving as Chamber President here in Hunterdon County now since 2008. And prior to that, I served in Middlesex County for a little over 5 years. And prior to that, with the Warren County Chamber, just north. But it really all started for me in the business sphere, when I had my own business. And I think that's when we first met. I actually operated a trolley company here in Flemington, New Jersey. Yeah, and I was just out of school. And what did I know? I was green. I was an entrepreneur and loving every minute of it. And really, I got involved. One of my mentors back from my high school days, you would know him as well, a great man who passed just a couple of years ago, Craig Proctor, suggested that I get involved with the Hunterdon County Chamber of Commerce. And Craig was active in Scouts when I was a youth and got involved with the Hunterdon County Chamber. Actually, Janet Finley was the president, some great other leaders, and really saw firsthand, the value of getting involved in your community. I was always involved in different organizations growing up, and owning a business felt a great connection to the county and to Flemington, and had that opportunity. So that kind of opened my eyes and opened up my opportunities. And when I ultimately, the company sold, I had the opportunity to jump into the nonprofit space. And for me, it was a great transition because I'm already involved at least with a nonprofit as a volunteer, and now switched roles and took on the presidency of the Warren County Chamber. And I think chambers have an incredible space and opportunity in communities to make a real long-term impact. So I'd love to share some more of that. And that was kind of a little bit of my background, but have loved every minute of it. It's really not a job for me. It's what I do, and really have that honor and opportunity. So I'm very grateful, to serve in this capacity.
It's so wonderful to hear you mention one of the people. I sat on the board of some organization with Craig Proctor and several other people, and I think it's a real tribute to him, people like Paul Sauerland, Lee Roth, who have been around a very long time, who I do look at as mentors. So it's wonderful that you had mentioned that. So you started out at the Warren Chamber, then you bounced over to the Middlesex Chamber, then you come to the Hunterdon Chamber, and that's always a question. So the Middlesex Chamber, a much larger chamber than the Hunterdon County Chamber, I would imagine. So what motivated you to come back to Hunterdon County when this spot opened up for you?
Well, it is interesting when you're working in a nonprofit and in a position like the chamber or many other nonprofit leaders or government leaders, you're in that fishbowl. So there was a lot of considerations. I never left, Hunterdon, and never left live in Raritan Township. Was always commuting to those other communities, but living and breathing and working day to day, and then raising a family in the same community had some considerations. All good, but very different. I enjoyed my time in Middlesex. It was very different than Warren. Very different than Hunterdon. Actually, my predecessor, Suzanne Legay, who served as president for about 9 years. She and I were professional colleagues and friends, and she had shared with me on the inside that she was thinking about retiring and would I want to throw my name in the ring, as they say, and be considered. And one thing led to the next. And that was very similar when I went over to Middlesex. I wasn't looking to leave Warren, had the opportunity through another colleague to consider it. And, what drew me to Hunterdon was one, it's a great community. It's a great county. I've been here for many years and had the opportunity again to raise my family, which we're doing, and really saw then my role as having direct impact. So from a personal perspective and an opportunity to be engaged in a business community that, has so many incredible individuals, because we could talk about all the great assets and we could talk about all the great things that you can do. But I think really at the heart of a community are the people. And, the people that we have in Hunterdon really drew me into that, and some great opportunities that, we could take on, some initiatives that were underway and some other programs really were exciting, about the future and vision of what Hunterdon County could be.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned, again, Suzanne Legay. I sat with Suzanne Legay on the United Way board, another person who is a real resource for Hunterdon County. And that kind of segues into the next question, which is, Middlesex, much larger county than Hunterdon County. Hunterdon County always meant to me, a more closer contact with the people that we're working with. And when you mention names like Craig Proctor and Suzanne Legay, it brings warmth to my heart to think about all the wonderful people that we've had here as a resource.
Yeah, at the heart of it, I do really reiterate that, it's the people, it's the community. And we've got an incredible business community here in Hunterdon County, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, even some of our large, I think about, one of our largest employers, ExxonMobil. This is a world-renowned company, and they're connected in many ways to our community as well. So at the heart of it, we could sit here all morning and list out the incredible people. And I kind of think of that analogy. Folks say, there's really only $1 in a community, and that dollar gets passed. It gets passed to the small business, and then gets passed to the nonprofit, and then maybe the nonprofit passes it to the individual in need, and then that individual in need gives it. I think about the people that are connected, especially the leaders. Like you, Joey, I've served on numerous boards. I was on the United Way board. I'm currently the chair of Prevention Resources in a volunteer capacity. When you think about our boards and our nonprofits and all of the different community connection, you see that patchwork, that fabric of so many of the same leaders that serve in those capacities, so many of the same volunteers that share and get involved and get engaged. And, Hunterdon is really a benefit of that, being a small, tight-knit community, engagement very high. We see that cross-section and that cross-pollination that really makes us, special. And I think from my perspective, as one of those leaders, and I really don't think of myself every day as a leader, of the Chamber of Commerce. It's kind of funny. You don't really think of yourself in that spotlight. It's kind of like you as a world-renowned publicist. You don't think of yourself every day as the publisher, but when you're out there in the community and you see the cooperation and the support and that leadership engaged, that really moves the community issues. And we've got some big issues, that we're facing in Hunterdon and we're facing here in the state. And the strength of leadership in our county has to be on a strong footing to succeed.
Yeah, Hunterdon is a very interesting combination of a lot of different things. We have some of the, I think Hunterdon County was named about a year ago as the best place in America to raise children, which, gave me some pride in our community. But we have some very wealthy folks. We have some folks who are very income challenged. We have, as you mentioned, a large business and a small business, and the chamber has to work within all of that. How do you every day sort of put all of those elements together to try to make sure that the chamber is doing the best job possible that they can do?
Well, I don't disagree, that we definitely have, that ability at the chamber to intersect with a lot, and it's a lot to kind of accommodate. And I think what I look at, from my leadership position, and, I think our strength comes from the top leadership within the organization. Like any group, our board is a primary focus of mine. And our board is reflective, Joey, of those different sectors, whether it's education. We've got great education that contributes to what a great place to raise a family and, be part of a community. So we've got representation from that. We've got representation from the small business sector, the mid-business sector, the large business sector, nonprofits. And at the chamber, we're trying to work within those, we use that word, it's kind of a pun here in Hunterdon, but those silos, because a lot of times, communities that get challenged because everybody's in their independent silo. So, the chamber tries to work within those silos, down those silos, and kind of look at those initiatives that are important. And I think, one of the great things that, our chamber has been successful at, we can't be all things to all people. We can't do everything on our own. So if there's opportunities that we can lead and advocate on a particular issue and strengthen, and I go back to, a time, probably back in 2008 and 9, we were coming out of yet another recession. It was a very large recession. The business community was trying to, look forward to see how we recover. We've got to have a strong economy. We've got to have jobs. We've got to have places for people to go and work, and all of that, all of the other elements of what makes an economy go. We got very engaged with things like leading the cause for the business improvement district. And here's an example. I don't really think of it. It just popped into my head about leadership. I went before the Chamber of Commerce Board and in essence proposed that we lead a cause that would institute a tax on business. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get run out of town, at the end of the day. Here we are, a business group trying to fight taxes and regulation and advocate for fairness. And I'm going to propose this in the midst of coming out of a recession. Ultimately, that led to the formation. The Chamber was very active in the formation of the Business Improvement District, and that became a separate entity, which has been, for working now, I guess, 10 years, as an entity. But that takes leadership, at the end of the day, to kind of look at things and to bring our board in around that collectively and move that. Ultimately, we got involved in another big high-profile county issue. You may recall the CEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. We didn't have for a number of years a formalized economic development program. We did not have the business resources to do that, but partnering with the county ultimately formed out of that and our engagement and our advocacy, an opportunity to form an Office of Economic Development. And was that going to create, again, a bigger tax burden for folks? Was that going to be a better investment of, tax dollars? So a lot of these things, kind of come into play. But as a chamber, we look, we strategize like businesses and organizations, try to pivot and move on particular issues. But I think, our rule of thumb has always been, it's about the long term. What's the long-term, goal here? What are we looking towards, that's going to benefit all, at the end of the day, not just business, because it really has to be, we're all in this community together and we've got to move the ship in the right direction.
It's funny you mentioned the Business Improvement District. I think that has been a good investment by the business community in Flemington. As a former member of the Flemington Borough Council, I remember several starts and stops of other organizations because they just never had the funding that was consistent. If there was funding that came from the Borough Council, it may have gotten caught up in politics. If it was funding that came just from donations, maybe that was never consistent. But the good thing about the Business Improvement District seems to be that it's a consistent and predictable funding that that can be invested in various events, business promotions, and so on. So I just want to add that I totally agree with you. Let me move on a little bit into this past year, 2020. We sit here at in the middle of April 2020, a very challenging, to say the least, year. How did you steer the ship? What were some of the things that you did to steer the chamber ship through the year of COVID-19?
Well, it's interesting, Jerry. We had our chamber's annual meeting last week and kind of touched on some of these issues, and really was an opportunity getting ready for the annual meeting to reflect on that and look at, we kicked off January, February, like the rest of the world, at a very normal place. We wrapped up the end of February with an annual meeting of almost 200 folks at the Ryland Inn, and who would have known within days, the world would stop and pivot and change. And, obviously this has impacted so many families, so many individuals, from a medical perspective, let alone an economic perspective and the like. I think one of the clear roles that I saw was the chamber and it sounds a little, dramatic, when I kind of say it, but it was real. We've been an organization now serving the county for 105 years. And if the chamber was going to go through, and I really looked at it very quickly, and then we just went to work, this was a historic moment that we had to respond and be there for those businesses and members. And we had to go beyond our membership because, things that we do, yes, it's a membership-driven organization, but we had to, be there collectively for the business community and what would be our role. We saw right away we had to let information into our businesses. And I look back, we hosted like by March 10th, a program that actually was still in person here. So it was right before the lockdown. We had the chief medical officer from Hunterdon Medical Center, Dr. Jerry Proswimmer. We had the head of our county health department, Karen DeMarco. We had the head of county emergency management, Braden Fahey. And we had that information stage set to kind of inform our members. These are the things that are happening in real time. And we hosted several then over the course of the next year. In addition to partnering, again, when we look at partnerships, that's a real component of leadership, and partnerships have to be real. They just can't be in talk. You gotta walk that line and tow it. So partnering with the Office of Economic Development, we started to feed information and coalesce information through what was at the beginning, daily e-blasts out to the business community. We put up a COVID-19 site because really it was an avalanche of information, and we had businesses on all different levels. That was one of the insights looking back. We had some businesses that have succeeded phenomenally in the economic challenges of 19. We had other businesses that did okay. We've had other businesses that continue to struggle. And we've had other businesses, unfortunately, that have left us and gone out of business. So there was a lot of different variables at play, but that role to be a resource and connect us to county and state. We got very active with our state partners. There was a coalition formed almost instantaneously amongst about 55 chambers with the state chamber. Chambers are kind of unique. We're all independent of each other. We're not like other nonprofits like United Way kind of tied in. Guess back at the turn of the century when most of us were formed, we were all independent entrepreneurs. But, we partnered with our other county chambers and business groups to kind of push information. We kicked off webinars and seminars and really trying to train and see, also providing, and I think that's an incredible aspect of the chamber, that individual support, almost like those mastermind groups that you can talk to peers and figure out, what am I doing? One of our programs was about how do you respond in the workplace? And we had some big employers and small employers talking about things that you need to do to prepare. And, even though that organizations respond differently, there's a commonality that you can draw down from. So that was big and huge. We saw right away too, that this economic, situation was going to be long-term. And by mid-year, we put together an economic recovery task force that continues to meet. And we kind of brought leadership in from different stakeholder groups and kind of looked at it. One of those direct needs was funding. And, we were able to early on as well. And it's kind of interesting, as well as I do, we talked quick about the silos, but Jersey loves home rule. How many municipalities? 500 and some municipalities, 600 and some school districts. We love our home rule. Well, that's not necessarily not true in the business world as well. And we've got some great local business groups, but trying to get the business groups to kind of work together sometimes is challenging because everybody's focused on what it's at hand for their individual town. But, the pandemic brought us together. I started hosting regular meetings of our 5 or 6 other business organizations, the Highbridge Business Group, the Clinton Guild, the Flemington Community Partnership, the Delaware River Towns Chamber, the Milford Group, Milford Merchants, the Frenchtown Business Group, and the County Office of Economic Development. We started to share information and talk on a regular basis. We continue to do that, as well. And, one of the other outcomes that's ongoing was this long-term strategy. And, businesses are still having a challenge, and that's access to capital. We saw a tightening of the belts, in terms of credit. We saw the tightening of the belts. Banks experienced local lending issues where you had businesses that couldn't make payments on, existing loans, on leases, on rents. How could we get access to capital out there? So we launched by the end of the year an economic recovery fund, and we're getting ready to re-announce that and do another push. And this was an opportunity to create direct grants to businesses. And I got to tell you, the impact for me, and I haven't really shared it with anyone, but going into one particular business, they were able to, based on us presenting that check, and this was with a great colleague, Paul Muir, who's the head of the Red Mill and president of the Clinton Guild. Yeah, they shared, they were able to make rent in December because we gave them that check. So this was real impact, real difference. Small in many ways, large in another. One of my own lines, having worked, when I was in high school at the old movie theater here in town and down at the Fiveplex. I always look at life, sometimes it's where you sit in the movie theater. Sometimes you're in the front row, sometimes you're in the back row, maybe you're in the old balcony, but your perspective is different, but we're all watching the same movie. And, when all is said and done, whatever we could do over this last year, we've tried to do and respond. And it's been encouraging because it's been challenging for a lot of folks. And I got to tell you, the resiliency of our board and our volunteers and our committees to stay committed to the cause, has been a real source of encouragement and, inspiration, I think, for the business community.
And that leads me to my final question, which is comes out of, I remember somewhere around 2009, maybe 2010, the Hunterdon Chamber hosted an event called Hunterdon 2020, looking to the future. And I remember attending that as a member of council. And of course, I don't remember any doctors talking about a prediction of a pandemic in 2020. So that, kind of think about what happens. But let's look down the road to the year. Let's say we're in 2021 now, 2050. If you were sitting somewhere in 2050, what would you like to see happen in the next 29, 30 years in Hunterdon County with regard to the population, the business community, and so on?
Well, Joey, I'll probably be sitting out on the chamber porch in a rocking chair with my cane, and you're welcome to join me as we look.
I'll probably be
one of I think the visions for our county, and we're starting to see shifts in a positive way. For so many years, we've seen an out-migration in New Jersey, and Hunterdon has not been immune to that in terms of decrease in population. We've lost upwards of 5,000 residents. We continue to have a lot of vacancy on the commercial side. We've seen shifts in, shopping patterns and the like. I think the county is poised, and I truly believe in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to see that resurgence. The quality of life out here is phenomenal, as we talked about. We've got incredible downtowns that are the real deal. They're the experiential opportunity to come out and shop and dine. And we've got art projects underway, like out in Frenchtown with Art Yard that is reviving our art community. We've got Lambertville that's bustling, Clinton. When you look at Flemington and its future, the Chamber's been a great advocate for redevelopment and the repurposing of commercial space in Flemington. So I think those projects are going to come to fruition. I think, again, our educational system is still going to be top notch. And I think you're going to see, folks really, I hope, going back to, it sounds a little Pollyanny, but back to community, at the end of the day.
I don't think that sounds Pollyanny. It really is the reason why, in large part, people have moved out here.
Definitely.
I being one of them. And, I think that from 100 years ago, I happen to, this year, my dad would have been 100. And when I think what the world was like in 1921, and I think what the world is like now, I think what we continually share in a community like Hunterdon, as you mentioned before, the community, the people.
I think so. And I think you hear a lot of reports on the news, and you read up on reports about volunteer engagement, and you hear about generations. Some generations are involved, some aren't. I think that resurgence of back into community and involvement. I have a great opportunity to be involved with my son's Cub Scout pack. My daughter's involved with Girl Scouts. You're starting to see, I think, generationally, that reopening and reawakening to that. So I think our communities are going to be the great benefit. I think all of the volunteer opportunities, I think about all the recreational and outdoor activities. We've had generations of leaders preserve open space in our county. So that opportunity is there now for generations to enjoy and benefit. So I think you'll see an expansion, hopefully, in our parks and in reinvestment in public dollars in that domain. I think you're going to start to see, I really do, in the next 10, 20, 30 years, a community that's, again, very vibrant and very active and very engaged. And I agree, a different business community as well. I mean, one of our goals, we took on this vision back in 16, and another opportunity when I think on leadership, where myself and our board chair of the foundation, our chamber foundation at the time, I was almost run out of town again for a second time when I said, we're going to purchase the large house on Main Street and we're going to turn it into a center for business and entrepreneurship. And those familiar with the large house, it was literally probably a few years away from coming in on itself. And the board said, "Are you guys crazy?" And we said, "Yeah, we're crazy, but here's our vision." And we went online during the pandemic. The center finally finished its construction, and we've had to pivot and turn, but I'm excited about this year. And I see a vision for the business community in the next 20 years. When you look at the March Madness we just went through, and look at the team, was it Gonzaga? Just went through this incredible run. And who ever heard of them? They're in the middle of nowhere, at the end of the day. And they're an incredible world-class team that made it almost all the way and inspired so many. I look at our Center for Business and Entrepreneurship. I hope in 20, 30 years, it's on the map globally as a center of incredible inspiration, business resources, training. And that really was the vision around our center, that Hunterdon County could have a place and a space of business education, leadership training as a primary focus. We've had 10 years almost now of our Leadership Hunterdon program. So I see some great things, and we've restored this great property that has incredible business history. We want to see that flourish and be told. And I think we can learn from our history to inspire the future and get us there. My last thought, Joey, was a little quote that I don't know, it's been given credit to Ronald Reagan and other leaders over the years, but it's really paraphrasing it. It's not about taking credit for what you've done. Let others take, the credit for that. Just let's get the job done. And I think that's always been my mantra. It's been the chamber project we've been involved. Nobody even knows that we were, the leaders around the bid and the formation 10 years later, and that's okay. It's about really things happening in the community, and that's one of the chamber's roles. We're like the tip of the iceberg is what you see, but we do so much, below the surface that has just long-term benefits. So I see in the next 10, 20, 30 years, out on that and looking at the vibrant Flemington. Maybe we can take our scooters down to the courthouse square and have a drink and have a good time.
Well, Chris, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know it's very valuable. I know
Thank
that
you.
I would imagine you probably, it's still early in the morning. I would imagine you probably have a pretty full day. And by this time tomorrow, you probably will have accomplished a great deal. I want to thank you again. This has been Chris Phelan, the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm Jay Novick with Take Me to Your Leader with Tap Into Flemington. And thank you very much.